Welcome in, guys. I am Mark Patterson, and you are in my dungeon. I'm going to break the races down. I do that nightly whenever Mountaineer runs. And in case you're new to my dungeon or new to me, please let me express some of my credentials, some of my cred, because you're probably thinking, who are you to talk races to me? Well, some would consider me qualified, and here are some of my qualifications. I wrote these down on the crib notes part of StreamYard. I send my signal from StreamYard to YouTube. And it's kind of like cue cards. And I never work with cue cards. I never cued myself or wrote down one single word I said on television, except for my very first appearance. And that was just a disaster, in my opinion. A lot of folks thought I showed plenty of potential. It was on ESPN with Chris Lincoln. But when I watch it now, and I still have the old tape, I just wince because I scripted myself. And I swore when I reviewed the video, I would never script another single word I said on television. And until this very moment, I have kept that promise, but I wrote down some of this stuff so I wouldn't forget it. I was first in attendance of the races at 8. My parents took me. I have been reading the form since I was 10, betting races, walking straight to the windows myself because I was a big kid since I was 11 years old. I am also a retired racing official of some 36 years. I did serve lengthy stints as a racing secretary. My main stock in trade, though, was as an assistant racing secretary. And on the way to that, I trained and supervised and mentored hundreds of officials, a lot of stewards included. I worked as a placing judge, an identifier. I worked as a clocker, claims clerk, interesting stint. And I can tell some stories about this. Work in the infield teletimer to boot. Maybe I shouldn't tell some of those stories. I am also trained as a DRF chart caller. Almost forgot about that. And assigned weights for some 200 handicap races back during Mountaineer's salad days. I also served as the chief, in fact, the only stakes recruiter for a couple of the races that I'm proud that we built integrated affairs. The West Virginia Derby, I think, hit its apex as a grade 2. And even the Governors worked its way up to a grade 3. And I keep glancing over here at my notes, which feels really uncomfortable to me because this is not how I do live television. I also worked as the official odds maker for like 3 decades, some 40,000 races. I was a lines maker. You probably know me, though, best for my work on Mountaineer's in-house handicapping show. The show with no name, kind of like Seinfeld, the show that was about nothing. It never had a name, but it sure went popular. Some would say it went viral. And in fact, as a result of my labors on that broadcast, I was named one of America's top 10 television racing analysts by the now defunct, but then highly respected Horse Player magazine. So that might answer your question, how I can be so presumptuous as to sit here and break Mountaineer races down for you. A lot of local knowledge, too. I don't get outside my lane. I don't talk Saratoga. I don't talk Naira, California, Kentucky, and stuff like that. I can certainly handicap those tracks and give a learned opinion, but it's still local knowledge, I think, in the long experience at Mountaineer and Mahoning, too, that puts me over the top and makes me perhaps worthy of your time. So welcome to the dungeon. Hot today. Might have tipped 90 on the thermometer. Straight up sunshine. So they got to be on turf. I haven't checked over on the Mountaineer page yet. And I am sure the Mountain Man is fast. I did see where we did hit the double. I hit the double last night with a horse that I left you guys with that paid 9-5. I looked pretty solid. I thought that Charlestown 6.5 furlong horse coming there to go to 5.5 furlongs under starter allowance conditions. A lot of chalk last night, a lot of minnows. I did manage to work out a profit in my own betting account. And I hope you guys had a good night as well. So with no further ado, let's get down to business. You know what I left out there of my history? A lot of gaps there. I left out my lost decade in the 1980s, during which I mainly handicapped for guys whose names ended in vowels. And those are the most colorful stories. And I might even do a video about the 1980s. The most interesting decade of my life, for sure. I think I might entitle that video The Lost Decade. And while I'm on that topic, check out my video content because I don't just come up and handicap races and analyze races and go back and forth with the comments and stuff like that. I also put out some video content, and you can check it out where I'm archived on my YouTube channel, which I guess you found your way to. If my voice is reaching you right now, my first one is still up, but I think it's worth your time to watch. Vet's List Vexation, about my extensive experience behind the scenes in dealing with state veterinarians. It's not what you would expect or exactly um, conventional information on the topic. It's nitty gritty inside stuff and how things really work behind the scenes. And I certainly had a lot of experience behind the scenes. My most recent video that I just put out was kind of a critique on how the new fangled Equibase rating system, its practical impact on a track the size of Mountaineer. And I used one race as an example about some bugs I think they still need to work out of the system. So please check those two videos out. I think the title of that one is Einstein Now Writes Condition Books, and the other was Restless Vexation. The next one I can tell you is going to be The Lost Decade. So let's get down to business, start taking a look at these races. I'm going to flip over and check the odds out while we keep talking here. Two turf races tonight. I think those are the first two on the card, and the gate crew prefer it that way. The maintenance crew, I think also, they're going to pull the fence back and everything and give access to the grass course. And it's just much easier on everybody involved if you do the turf races right off the bat. And Mountaineer cards them early, not because they don't have lights, because they do. Functional lights, and turf races can be run under those lights. But the jocks complain. The jocks do not like to ride on grass after the sun goes down, when supposedly the dew sets in, and it can get a little bit slippery out there. So with safety first in mind, we always carded the grass races during daylight. I used to cut it kind of close though. When you get around to maybe September or something like that, it starts getting dark a little bit earlier. And I was always under a dictum when it was my call, which races we used and how to configure the cards, to use no more than 3 turf races. But I always pushed the envelope. I was a maverick, and a lot of times I would use 4 turf races, which really pushed the envelope when it came to daylight, because the gloam would be gathering and the dew. I would be on deck by the time we ran that 4th race in September on turf. Just 2 grassers tonight, though, so no dew and no darkness to contend with, huh? I won't do that often. List my cred, my credentials. Chris Lincoln was my mentor when it comes to doing live television and gave me my first shot doing the West Virginia Derby, I think 1998, when the race was reinstituted at Mountaineer. As his color analyst, out of the blue, he tabbed me when the great man came to Mountaineer and performed the ceremonial draw for that year's West Virginia Derby, and just out of the blue pointed out to the crowd and said, I have my co-host for my ESPN telecast, and that is your own Mark Patterson. I'm looking around for another guy named Mark Patterson, but there was none. It was me. First race, 7.5 furlongs on the turf. This is a maiden $25,000 claimer, huh? Okay, grossly inflated. I don't think any of these have been better than third on turf, and there's not too much of that either. So we're going to dig deep through this field to find anybody that shows enough on grass to maybe merit a bet here. Number 1, Atomic War, a first-time starter. The Dam was a one-time winner, but it was overseas on turf, I think at a reasonable distance of ground there. And Mike Baird did win with a first-time starter, I think last week or the week before. So Mike's had the training saddle out. His stats are a little bit deceptive. He's showing 3 for 10 with first-time starters over the 2-year time frame that the Formulator stats and a handicap from Formulator utilizes. But if you go back further, it's not such a rosy picture for Mike. He's more like 3 or 4 for 30-something, 40-something over the last 5 years. He's capable of having a horse ready first time out if he wants to. And to send this one 7.5 on turf, I'm sure Mike has endeavored to do that. It's been so long, though, since I saw a first-time starter. No, you know what? Check that. Lynn Cutno did it with a horse named Bailey Squirrel a couple of weeks back. But before that, you had to go all the way back to Veschenko, I think, who won both parts of the double with 2 very promising grassers, both first-time starters, and both at a route of ground. Split halves at the same maiden special weight race, and that was years ago. It's just rarely done at Mountaineer, rarely pulled off successfully. Number 2, Decorated Warrior. Decorated Warrior was up the track in both turf tries, but then gets over to dirt so they could drop down to $4,000 because $4,000 claimers are not written on turf at Mountaineer. And since that didn't work, it's back to the grass for Decorated Warrior, who at least grabbed the stuff enough to open 6 lengths down the backstretch on August 24th. That's wasteful. It doesn't work on the grass. So I'm sure there'll be some attempt made to restrain the big guy tonight. A little better than that. Number 3, Jack Swore. Jack Swore, just one outing's worth of experience. That's 5/8 on dirt. And I'm not all that impressed with that one. So I'm a little surprised at the price up there at 9-2. I think it's Oliveros, Mountaineer's most successful and certainly ballyhooed turf rider who was attracting a lot of that money. But unless he's going to get off and carry the horse, I think I'm going to pass on number 3, Jack Swore, especially at 9-2. I'm running through the whole lineup here because I don't want to skip a prospective winner, and it's not going to take much to score here. Number 4, Junior Chief. I think Junior Chief's got a chance here. I think Junior Chief's got a distinct chance. Junior Chief finished third on the turf, so there's something to be said for that because turf placings are a rarity in this race. And if I'm looking back at that 60 Beyer when he was beaten less than a length, a horse named Differentia would come back to beat Never Twos this year is a big chalk. And look who was second there, Bosley, who has blossomed into quite the grass runner. Bosley's won 2 of his last 3 by open lengths here at Mountaineer. Bosley, I think, is a 3-time turf winner to boot, and that was a big performance from Junior Chief. Plus Horatio Barberan's barn. And boy, he was dormant forever and ever, kind of like the cicada. But he is no longer dormant. He's kind of live with some of his horses. And I think Junior Chief rates a long, long look. And one thing that could be keeping the price higher than it should be, those ugly-looking dirt efforts. But this horse will not lift a hoof on dirt. I mean, he won't run on dirt at all. And how about that 4th place finish on June 1st, maiden special weight race? He was well beaten. But those are much better horses than these. Toto, man, was a chalk there, like 3-5, the winner of that. And he came back to, I think, missed by just a head or something like that, or run second at Churchill Downs on the grass. So much better horses there than Junior Chief takes on here for the $25,000 claiming price. Back in a minute. So George says in the comments, where were you back when there were 10 races a night and there were also eligibles in half the races? I was a racing official. And during stints, then I worked as racing secretary, but mainly as assistant racing secretary. So I was, in some sense, part of the architecture of those programs. And I do remember when we used to go for 10 a night, and that got really hard as the horse shortage became more and more and more acute. And we certainly suffered our fair share of short fields until the advent of the slots back around, man, I'm trying to think back when they came in about the turn of the century or something like that. And then we went on the climb on the ascent for a while there. But yeah, I can remember those days and was part of them. And I can even remember before I became a racing official when they used to go for 12 races on Saturday night and run double cards with 12 races a crack on each card, the double headers and stuff like that. So yeah, I well remember those days. And I was a degenerate patron back in those days before I ever became a racing official. So Junior Chief, I think, is a horse that you want to consider strongly in here. Number 5, Could Do. Could Do's been in the money on turf a couple of times, a couple of thirds. Can be tactful. A little bit on grass, seems to drop out of it, straight up drop out of it on dirt. Fairly encouraging performance last time. I don't think this horse really wants dirt. And Finding Candy was a soft pace leader there and was like 1-9, literally, or something like that. And Could Do is not in with anybody like Finding Candy in here. And a couple of those grass races would qualify Could Do to run well here. Not that they were won by any world beaters there. Frozen 4 and Wildling Lane, those are not good horses. I'm going to be straight up front about that. So Could Do is no bona fide world beater, but certainly a contender here. By English Channel prefers the turf. Number 5, Copel tries 2 turns on the turf for the first time. Israel Acevedo used to win with first-time starters. Got to go back to Williston way, I think, to find a whole lot of that. Uh, Copel's in the same boat as number 1, Atomic War. This is just rarely pulled off with any kind of success, and it's been a while since I saw Acevedo tighten the screws on one or come up with a horse that was runner enough to pull a feat like this off. Number 7, Broken Sound. Broken Sound, certainly a contender. Broken Sound on turf did improve second time at the post there at Gulfstream Park. Got to remember that's Gulfstream Park. That's maiden special weight, so that's respectable to finish 5th by less than 7 lengths. So for all we know, Broken Sound, who does have a turf pedigree, at least on the bottom, might move up second time on grass here. And last time, encouraging effort when overmatched to the aforementioned, like 1-10, Finding Candy, who got away with a soft opening stanza there and was never going to get caught or nobody was going to get close to him. So that's a good performance from Broken Sound to have the rest strung out far in his wake. So definitely a strong contender there, Broken Sound. Kukai, the 8-horse, the race that he comes out of was just pathetic. The winner of that had lousy form, even as low as 75 maiden. It was like 12 wide on the first turn and still romps by like a Secretariat margin. It was just ugly, the whole affair. So I don't like him at all. Unless he moves way up on turf, which he's going to have to show me. And Sanford Rod on the outside, not bred for grass necessarily, but Jay's going to try turf with this one because he can't be too satisfied with what he's seen of this horse's dirt wears. Would you guys agree? Yeah, I think you would. Check out the odds board here. It is listed 0 to post, but that means we still have a couple of minutes. And I'm looking at number 4, Junior Chief. Number 5, Could Do, is the favorite with the 2 turf placings and the much improved dirt buyer last time from Could Do. Also, Tina Ramjet, I think, has won 5 races over the last, I don't know, what are we talking? At least 4 wins, I think maybe 5 over the course of the last week and a half or something like that. So she's got it going on right now, does Tina Ramjet. Number 10, 30-30. I think this is your pace setter. Blew a 4-length lead. What an ignominious distinction in the opening race of the season back on April the 12th. I remember that. That was not pretty and does not bode well for this horse's ability to get 2 turns, whatever the surface, huh? Just 4 horses in the second race, and pretty darn tootin' sure it's going to come down to number 3, Too Fast for You, or number 8, New Ways to Dream. And I'd love to tell you I have a strong opinion on which way that cookie's going to crumble, but I don't necessarily. I really don't want to weigh in on which of those horses is the more likely winner. As far as the opening race goes, I think the 4 is a bit under bet. Junior Chief there. I don't think he's in a kind of a cinch, but I do think he's going to run well. And I might even bet a couple of bucks myself on him. Hey, good luck to you guys. Not a strong field and not a tough race to win. So if you like somebody, just on some little inkling of light or some little angle that you like, no matter how desultory that horse's past performance is, you might want to take a shot here in the first race. Because again, this is really bad by maiden 25,000 claiming standards. So that was a good start for me in my personal betting account. I really liked that horse a lot. And I think 9-2 was pretty good value on that horse. I was hoping for the 7-1 wasn't going to happen. Do I have to reiterate the whole litany again? It's not a tout show. And right now I'm not posting picks up there. I'm not trying to tell anybody what to bet. And I will pick more losers than the law allows. Nobody can guarantee consistent winners. What I can guarantee is consistently good insight and racing analysis. But it worked out there for me and my betting account. I hope it worked out too for you guys. I hope that you guys agreed with me on the race there. Kenny, my man, is just he is just brutally cynical. I really dig this guy. So, will this one keep the win after a testing mark? He's had a few not make it. I couldn't even entertain this kind of discussion when I worked in the industry. Kenny, my man, I will tell you this, and I'm not talking about Horatio Barberan or any horseman in particular. Number one, I don't care if he gets to keep the purse or not, because my money is in my poke on that 9-2, baby. So I don't care what happens from here on in. But I will say this: when I used to work as an assistant race secretary, and all the rulings had to come across my desk because I had to know who to consider a winner and who would get the condition back because the test came back bad. Now, even that got complicated. The stewards and the state vets made that impossibly complicated. But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother night. I'm not going to bore you guys with some of that behind the scenes stuff. But boy, what a morass that was. But anyways, when an obscure barn would get hot, and so many small outfits cover their whole nut over the course of a couple of weeks that they go almost unnoticed. They pop their heads up out of the gopher holes and win maybe 2 races, 2.5 races over the course of a couple of weeks. And then they go back into hibernation. You don't see them again, at least not in the winner's circle. And man, when an obscure barn, and I'm not referring to anybody, not the winner of that race or any particular outfit, but when I would see some obscure stable come to life all of a sudden with all of its stock, I would just sit there and count down until the bad test came across my desk. And a lot of times it did come across my desk, Kenny, me boy. A lot of times it did come across my desk. And again, that's one reason I dig having my own dungeon thing going on here on YouTube, because somebody suggested, a really good friend of mine, Lori Denoto, was a great steward, chief steward in the whole state of Ohio. I'm going to have a guest in some night on the show, but my first guest, and I'm going to hold him to it, is the ace handicapper and total savant, my man Doug Salvatore is going to be my first guest. Denoto's going to guest at some point on the show too, for sure. And she suggested the title of the show should be Unshackled. Unshackled. I don't know. It sounds a little dramatic, doesn't it? Whatever. So let's turn to the second race. I think we got just 4 to the post in race number 2, as we are riddled with scratches. You know, sometimes this happens because outfits enter in hopes the race does move over to dirt. They didn't used to do it like that. And man, I would petition outfits for years when I'd hustle races. And I first made my bones as a very aggressive and innovative race hustler in the racing office, trying to procure entries and trying to coerce, arm twist, and straight up talk trainers into going into specific spots to help out the office and help themselves too, hopefully, because that's the best hustle, when the horse can win and everybody's happy. You got the horse and they got the purse. But whatever the case, I used to beg guys with dirt horses to enter in turf races, and I would tell them, torrential rains in the forecast. It'll scratch the 3 horses. You will be 1 to 10. But for the longest time, it just went too much against their ingrained religion. They would not enter a dirt horse on turf in hopes that the race came off grass. But I think a lot of outfits do it now. But beyond that, I'm trying to see who the intimidators here might be, who scratched on the notion that there's somebody too tough for them to beat. And again, and another thing, you never know what's going on behind the scenes. Which of the horses were entered in bad faith and always earmarked to be scratched? And I'm not pointing a finger at anybody or referring to any specific race, but it happens. It happened to me, and it has happened to these people too sometimes. And it's almost impossible to combat. And it is the plague of reindeer. And reindeer is a term I coined for a bad faith entry that is put in simply to make a race fill and that is pre-earmarked to be scratched. It's not unique to Mountaineer. It's a nationwide thing. And I was no virgin when it came to getting reindeered either. I fought and fought and fought against them for years. Bad faith entries with very little success, by the way. So I will not be a hypocrite and point at some other office administration and say, look at what they're letting the horsemen get away with, because I couldn't stop it. And I'm not even saying it's going on in any specific races. I'm just explaining to you guys some of the possibilities, some of the reasons that you might see a lot of horses get scratched from a specific spot. And that is the kind, folks, of real world behind the scenes experience that you're going to get from few racing analysts. So what do we got? We got a grand total of 4 under. "12-5 starter allowance, conditions to go 7/8 on the turf course." That's 1 lap, and it starts pretty close to the turn. Let's check out the odds board while I keep addressing the camera and talking to you guys. We'll get to the comments here shortly. And I can see 1 minute to post. They're on the track. Sakara, number 4. I can tell you Sarah Stanachek doesn't pay much when she buys horses. And I think they're already marked to become polo ponies, Peloponnese, as Art Carney used to say, or riding horses and stuff like that. In the world I inhabit, she doesn't win 12-5 starters with her private buys. I can tell you that. 4 turf wins are not for Sakara. Number 10, Flat Out Diamonds, and I'm talking about the horses I don't like here first. Flat Out Diamonds. On dirt, yeah, count me in, but Flat Out Diamonds just not nearly as good on grass as on dirt. And Dennis Cluley has come up with a couple of turf horses. Bosley comes to mind, and he had something else, which turned out to be a turf monster, some indie bred, a couple of years back. But my man thinks they're all interchangeable. He thinks every horse under his care can perform equally well on turf or dirt, and that's not the case. And it's certainly not the case with Flat Out Diamonds. Boy, I don't think at all with the Flat Out Diamonds. Flat Out Diamonds does have the 2 turf placings. The only shot, I think, would be if the 3 and the 8 makes it up and do the Let's You and Her Fight thing. And even that, I don't think is going to make Flat Out Diamonds a winner here. I think really clearly it comes down to the 3 who is favored at even money, and the 8 who is 6-5. Too Fast for You. Can do the 7/8. Churchill Downs duel, missed by a head, but it's a 1-turn race. Keep it in mind. Churchill Downs powers away by almost 8, going 7/8. But that's a 1-turn race. You want to keep that in mind. Is 3 for 3 on turf. Is Too Fast for You. Marshall Godsey has been bringing them all back, rip-roaring, ready to fire big first time off the bench. And Too Fast for You looked pretty athletic and like a smooth mover, and getting an inside trip to run right by a loose leader who came up pretty big there on a 4-length cushion. So good performance from Too Fast for You, who has been given almost a month and a half to avoid the dreaded bounce, huh? So Too Fast for You, definitely a player for sure. Too Fast for You is in tough with number 8, New Ways to Dream. And I wonder how Weatherly's going to play this. Is he going to go on the chase? Because New Ways to Dream has that breakaway speed. And it would be perhaps ill-advised for Weatherly to get too antsy too early on number 3, Too Fast for You. Number 8, New Ways to Dream. New Ways to Dream is 3 for 3 over the Mountaineer turf course. And boy, those are big bulges, big margins. The downside of those margins is New Ways to Dream has not beaten a doggone thing in any of those turf wins. Certainly nothing the caliber of Too Fast for You. New Ways to Dream, phenomenally fast on the turf, certainly has a turf foot. And the buyers would almost certainly carry the day here, even against Too Fast for You. So kind of a tough call between this pair for me. If you put the proverbial pistol to my head, I would probably still say, not too sure which way I would play this. So I am probably not going to bet the race at all. New Ways to Dream has won at 7/8 on this configuration, which is 2 turns. But again, not against anything like Too Fast for You. I think the question comes down to, can Too Fast for You rate kindly at a 2-turn trip? We know that she can do it at 5/8, but can she do it at 2 turns and not go on a full-out chase early and rate kindly and then come after New Ways to Dream in a timely manner? You know what the tactics will be on New Ways to Dream with Barrios on board, plus given the way that she rolls. And that will be to take no prisoners. I do not have a strong enough opinion as to which of these horses is going to get the better of the other to actually bet the race. So it's not a value deal for me. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to enjoy it. Good luck to you guys. This story in sports as a hard scent, Too Fast for You, and I think that was a silly ride, takes New Ways to Dream, and they were both 4 to 5, to a very unpleasant place called Speed Dual Cities. So Flat Out Diamonds, kind of a, hey mom, look what I found win there for Flat Out Diamonds, who I still think is way better on dirt. But Flat Out Diamonds is the beneficiary the way that race shakes down. Too Fast for You, I don't think wanted to engage in full scale early speed warfare with the sudden, the rapid New Ways to Dream. I don't think that was good strategy. But I also think the way Too Fast for You backed off rather abruptly midway around the turn. And don't get me wrong, the splits were withering there. I think maybe we saw some shades of that voided claim action from last August at Colonial. Maybe not the soundest thing. Too Fast for You. New Ways to Dream loses no luster with me in defeat. I did mention beforehand that whether or not the 3 years could rate kindly would maybe be pivotal to the outcome there, and also New Ways to Dream, but never beaten anything. And any of those wide margin turf wins. Nonetheless, though, Flat Out Diamonds, you know, if you want to really split hairs, Flat Out Diamonds is going to win that race more than 1 out of 12 times and ended up 11-1, which was probably too high, given the possibility that the 3 and the 8 would duke it out. But I did not see Flat Out Diamonds is one of the 2 likeliest winners in there. And I'm not going to breadboard and say that I did. If you bet strictly on the race flow, then congratulations. Nice job for ferreting out that winner at an incredible 11-1 there on Flat Out Diamonds. And my man Chris Connors says, I miss the Beulah twins. I think they gave good handicapping advice, or maybe I like them for some other reason. You know what, Chris? The Beulah twins, none of their male brethren enjoyed competing with the Beulah twins. I can't remember if they were still in the year. I don't think they were when I came in to do the Mountaineer show. I think maybe they were still in the year. We ran nights though, and Beulah ran days, so that wasn't an issue for me. Really, I didn't have to straight up compete with them, because one thing I could never do was attractive and blonde. I mean, really, it wasn't me, and I could never compete with that, to be honest about it. I will tell you this, as far as the handicapping advice goes, those girls were mutual clerks. And the brainstorm of a guy who was, I think, the GM, or at least the director of racing, a really sharp guy named Mike Weiss, who was the honcho at Beulah Park at the time, and figured, you know what, let's give some eye candy to the masses out there, to the unwashed masses, and give them something to look at, because they really don't want anybody to tell them what to bet anyways. But boy, our demographic is older male guys, horny male guys, okay? So we're going to put the Beulah twins out there front and center. They were mutual clerks, and I'm pretty sure they didn't know what a claiming race was. And if it sounded like they did, I happen to know they were scripted by super agent Billy Johnson, who would go on to dominate the agents' ranks at Mountaineer when he migrated here from Ohio many, many years ago. The late Billy Johnson, Gary Johnson's brother. Gary Johnson, a pretty good friend of mine, an ace handicapper in his own right. Gary Johnson, the architect of some massive pick six scores, Gary Johnson. And for a while, the leading trainer in Ohio, his brother Billy Johnson. Billy Johnson was a super agent at Mountaineer behind the scenes, and I manipulated things. And I mean, this is praise, almost like a Bond villain of Billy Johnson. But when he was at Beulah, he hadn't quite grown as big as he would when he came to Mountaineer, and he was working in the office over there. He did a stint as an official, and he would script word for word everything the Beulah twins would say. Do you remember how they used to say, this horse is pork chop? Boy, I like the tours. She's got early speed, and I like the price. This is pork chop. They must have said pork chop a zillion times a day. That was Billy Johnson speak. That was Billy Johnson's lingo, pork chop. This is pork chop. I probably heard him say it a million times. That's pork chop. This horse is pork chop. So I hate to be a myth buster here, but the Beulah twins, with all due respect to their feminine pulchritude, didn't know what a maiden race was. My man didn't know what a maiden race was. So let's turn the page, and we do come upon a maiden race, ironically enough, for fillies and mares. 4,000 claiming to go 5.5 furlongs. Got to take a drink from my jug OT here. I carry this thing around, a gallon of dyed peach tea, like an umbilical cord, man. I got people used to this hedonism on my part, too. I got a lot of long, strange looks for about the first year that I did it, and finally people just got used to it. Thank you. Thank you for waiting for me to quench my thirst, guys. I think that the Clouston holds the cards here for sure with number 4, Mamcross, and number 7, Sylvette. Mamcross holds an ignominious distinction for Clouston. This is the horse that he got the seriously bad substance test on, and got him set down November the 18th there, Mamcross. Mamcross wins by 8 1/4 lengths with a 54 Beyer because Mamcross was not running clean and sober. So Mamcross, unable to come back and duplicate that score, ran against 2 lifers once before getting the maiden condition back, and then did get the maiden condition back on June the 16th there. And Mamcross opened up around the turn there, but was run down by a horse who really wanted to lead in that horse's own right. But Mamcross put the brakes on in deep stretch and kind of made Animal Security a passer of opponents. If you guys can stay with me on this. Now, Mamcross was probably in need of the outing because everything that Clouston was running, and Julie Stansberry's official name, was short. First time back off the bench, second time back off the bench. So Mamcross may well be fitter than Mamcross was there on June the 16th, which doesn't answer the question, what kind of performance will we see from Mamcross clean and sober? Well, you're looking at a probable winner, a probable leader, I should say. Freudian slip there. You're looking at a probable leader, and you're a certain early leader who was pressured a little bit for the first couple of 100 yards last time. I don't see that in the cards tonight. I see Mamcross clear right from the jump, and Mamcross should be fitter than last time. I don't know how much I'd bank on any 54 Beyers, though, or any return to that thrilling performance from November the 18th there on Mamcross. If Mamcross is going to get run down here at 5.5 furlongs, I think, ironically enough, it's probably going to be the other Clouston that pulls that off. So give me a second. I'm going to go over and see how much time we have because I tend to yak sometimes and lose track of when post time is. I see it's still 7 minutes to post here, and Mamcross is 3 to 5. And checking out the comments there. Anthony says, I met them at Beulah. They were nice girls, as far as I heard. I never made their acquaintance, though. Nice girls, but handicappers, not so much. Yeah, Jordan Park says, watch out if you were a kidney stone farmer. Too much iced tea can cause kidney stones. Yeah, Jordan, I've been zapped for them twice. As a matter of fact, I had so many of them last time that my urologist, not a great bedside manner, but one hell of a surgeon, he asked me, you really want me to go after all these things with one shot at the lithotripsy? And so I said, yeah, man, I can take it. Bring it, baby. Bring it. So big mistake. So he zaps who knows how many huge kidney stones, too big to pass, out of the small of my back. And I went on TV to do a show, and I remember this distinctly. I went on TV to do this show like 4 hours later, 5 hours later, and I was in such pain that when the camera would go down during the race, I was in tears, literally crying. And my friend Donato was in there with me, and she was really sympathetic and said, you got to stop calling into the show. But I didn't. I soldiered on, and I got through the show, and it was one of the hardest shows I ever did, man. I can remember it really well. I had on, I think, my pink dress shirt. Real men can wear pink. It wasn't flaming pink or anything like that. It was kind of a muted pink. I had on my pink dress shirt and a red tie, and just not a good memory. And yeah, I probably have developed more kidney stones because I just guzzled the iced tea and more and more and more and more and more. So that's a very informed remark. Kenny Neely says, weatherly wrong, Jock, to have a race like that. Thinking and measuring pace, not in his wheelhouse, shall we say. Well said, Kenny. Well said. My man, Hubert Gaffney. Did you hit that race, Hugh? Because he said that's the way to handicap. Did you see that as a race flow in favor of the 10? Let me know, man. Welcome into Anthony and the bangers in the house, and my man Kenny and Hubert Gaffney, Stephen, good friend of mine. Anthony, Andy, always good to see Andy. Chris Connors, good friend of mine. And my man, of course, Lyrics. Lyrics, I don't assume name, huh? Jordan Parks, Wayne, Talked to Wayne a couple of days ago. Good to see you, Wayne. Norman Williams, that is lyrics, says Marky. I kind of like to be called Marky. My dad used to call me Marky, and my mother would occasionally call me Marky. And some of the guys whose names ended in vowels that I handicapped for during my lost decade of the 80s, and I'm more and more sure I'm going to do a video about some of those remembrances. I used to call me Marky too. They were older than me, and certainly authority figures for obvious reasons in my life. They would call me Marky from time to time. He says, cranberry juice will do the job. Man, what was that stuff going to do? What is that stuff going to do to my gut, though? Cranberry juice with all that acid, man. I think Clouston holds the off the pace card here too with Sylvette number 7. Strangely enough, as heavy a hitter as Big Heavy Boy, aka Anthony Ferrier, is with a thoroughbred horse, when he brings one to Mountaineer, earmarked to leave behind with Eddie Clouston, Clouston usually improves those horses. He usually moves them up on Anthony Ferrier, and Sylvette definitely improved the Beyer Fig last time. Although I don't know if that number was for real because Katrina Czar did not have a great form, but Katrina Czar did come through and run a decent number. And that's an improved effort from Sylvette. And you back Sylvette up to 5.5 furlongs, and she may come screaming late with an attitude. And if Mamcross backs up like last time and is there to be had, then it might be Sylvette that does it. I listed something to say on my puzzling morning line prices 3-1. And my simple remark there is will be higher on something to say who was beaten 15 lengths last time after getting a soft lead. I was beaten 14 lengths to Sylvette, who's barely lower than something to say on the line. At the time before, something to say was, again, running when the rest of them were not something to say because something to say attacks the soft places in these races. No speed last time. So something to say gets a good ride is out of the engine. Time before last, there's some kind of a speed fight up front. Something to say is way behind. So she got good trips the last 2 times and really didn't do much about them, in my opinion. Something to say. I don't like her here at all. And I listed her as one of my puzzling morning line price points. I don't know what the odds are, but they're not going to be as low as 3-1. I can tell you that. Mazarn was almost kind of a cult horse there a couple of weeks ago. It seemed like all the wise guys were assuring everybody that Mazarn, the maiden win was eminent. Mazarn, I think, got some trouble or something like that and shuffled back and then came running. I use that term advisedly because it didn't come running a lot, but somewhat on May the 25th, and then comes back to move again late at almost 20-1, but that race slowed up a lot in the late stages. On June the 2nd, Mazarn, this Odyssey attempted turf, and then last time, not good placement. Straight Up Maiden Special was not even taken off the turf, so comes down to a more likely spot and is probably running late, but not my favorite late mover in here. That would be number 7, Sylvette, on the cutback here. And that usually productive switch, a left behind horse that was probably earmarked always to be left behind with Clouston by Anthony Ferrier, aka Big Heavy Boy. And he usually improves on those kind of horses. So I think that King Clouston, and the one horse qualifies as wants to lead. And she's not going to get it on paper from Mamcross, so I don't respect her either. So, man, I think this is all Clouston. If it doesn't get him, what was that old Tennessee Ernie Ford song? I'm showing my age. My dad used to like Tennessee Ernie Ford until he found out the guy was about 4'9". And my dad did not respect a short guy. My dad was like 6'2", 6'2.5". And when he would find out somebody was short, man, he was off them, as he used to say. And but he did like Tennessee Ernie Ford until he found out how short the dude was. And what was the old Tennessee Ernie Ford song? If the right one doesn't get you, then the left one will. I guess Mamcross is the right and Sylvette's the left for King Eddie Clouston here. Hey, good luck to you guys. Well, guys, I don't exactly owe my soul to the company store, but I might had I been unwise enough to back Mamcross at 3-5. Mamcross stopped last time and not to a strong finisher, and Mamcross just not the same horse, clean and sober. It doesn't look like, not at all. Number 5, Something to Say. I was completely wrong about the performance there, but I was correct about the odds. I listed Something to Say as a puzzling morning line price at 3-1, and I put Will Be Higher. Something to Say pays 19-1 there, 19-1. Love my man Norman Williams' comment. 4 needs his milkshake. I think my man is betraying a little behind the scenes knowledge of the backstretch, and this has nothing to do with Mamcross or Eddie Clouston, but I can remember when I was walking Hots on the backstretch, and there was a concoction called a milkshake. And it looks like a milkshake and administered to a horse. I think it relieves them of lactic acid. So lactic acid doesn't build up and stuff like that. I could tell another story about milkshakes on the backstretch, and I will some night. But yeah, milkshake. Yeah, it's called milkshaking a horse. It has nothing to do with anybody that was in that race or any horse that was in that race. But just a good lesson there, Mamcross. Not the same. Running clean and sober, huh? Somebody explained to me how Sylvette beats Something to Say 13.5 lengths last time, but Something to Say beats Sylvette handily tonight. 4th race, 5.5 furlongs. Got some better stuff coming up a little bit later on. We've got Starter Allowance and Force of Justice, by the way. It looks like an absolute cinch in there. Force of Justice. 6th race is intriguing. That's a Starter 8. Or 12-5 claimer, starter optional, they call that. And then you'll watch Heroes Man later on in action, that 15-time winner of some $400,000, huh? So some good stuff coming up. I think by Never 3 Life $4,000 standards, this is kind of a deep field and a compelling race. Far From Home on the inside flashed speed. Took early money last time, believe it or not. Did flash some speed. But this horse is 23 or 23 and change, it looks like. The only 22 and change was 22-4, and that was out of the 6 furlong shoot. And do not compare 5.5 furlong fractions or 5/8 splits with 6 furlong fractions. They're just different. You get to build up the speed along the out of that chute and along the long backstretch run there. I don't care if the run up supposedly 31 feet at every sprint distance at Mountaineer. First off, I don't really believe it. And second off, 6 furlong fractions are still faster than 5.5 and 5/8 fractions. So if you see a horse that can go 22-4 at 6 panels, you can bet that horse is going to be 23-1 or 23-2 at 5.5. And what I'm getting at is Far From Home. I do not make necessarily a real heavy pace factor here. I think the pace horses, obviously, that should dominate the early going. Stepnoski, who might shake loose, unless Game Maker can have something to say about that. I don't make Far From Home a major pace factor here. Number 3, Gemstone Warrior. I was disappointed to take a peek at the odds a minute ago and see the price was kind of low because I like this horse, Gemstone Warrior. I know that's kind of a vague term, like it's value dependent. I got to get the right price on this horse. But when I say I like, I mean, I give the horse a pretty good chance. And also maybe fancy that I see a couple of things, which possibly the all-knowing Caw won't pick up on. Gemstone Warrior is 2 for 32. I don't like that, but I'm looking in 24 of those losses came on alternative footings, turf and synthetics there for Gemstone Warrior. Plus Gemstone Warrior was not running at Mountaineer at rock bottom level. And also Randy Bailey. And I'm not trying to convince anybody or make a case. I'm not here as an advocate. I'm just giving my opinions on these horses, guys. I'm not trying to make case or sell anybody to like what I like or bet who I'm going to bet. It's not that kind of show. Okay, I'm not an advocate because sometimes being an advocate is the worst thing an on-air analyst can do. But anyway, so Gemstone Warrior. Also, Randy Bailey's a Sharpie. And I think has moved up already on this horse's previous barn, which was 4 for 111. I mean, how bad can you be? Room for improvement there, right? Gemstone Warrior, not so impressed with a win on June the 14th, even though Semper Anicus came back to win and win handily. What I am impressed with is the follow-up start there because that race was beyond salty. for a 4,003 lifer. That's why Gemstone Warrior was 14-1 off a win in the next lower condition, and wasn't Train and Trust an allowance dropper for that 2K stable. And the place horse Wings of God was coming down to $4,000 too, and was out there in a soft lead. So very tough draw for Gemstone Warrior from the 8 post, which is no horse's friend at a flat mile at Mountaineers. So that's a much improved effort from Gemstone Warrior, I thought, and even closed against soft fractions there, against the race flow, the Gemstone Warrior, and shortens up dramatically here to 5.5. And I can see where this horse has been close to the pace before in some shortish sprints there. His Gemstone Warrior, guys. So I give Gemstone Warrior quite a chance here. And of course, it's price dependent, and there are some other potential toughies in this field. This is kind of stacked and loaded for this kind of price and this kind of condition. So let me check on the odds at this point. And somebody just texted me. So moving down the line, and before moving pictures, no chance, in my opinion, wants to be close to the pace and needs a 6 furlong distance and race complexion to do that. Quicker stock at 5.5. Number 5, Ghost Again. Ghost Again. Somebody texted me today will be lower than the morning line price point of 9-1. Somebody who comes in incognito here, so I'm not going to out you, my man, from Akron. Ghost Again, yeah, is lower right now than at 9-1. 9-1 is a ridiculous price point. I have pontificated too much already on the ridiculously set in between odd numbered price points, 7-1 and 9-1 and stuff like that. Just not professional lines making, in my opinion. Ghost Again, last time on grass, for all we know, moved up on the stuff or else doesn't like the stuff. Was freshened up from March and came back with a decent effort and drops a little bit in class and won back-to-back races with speed figs that would compete here at Mahoning. There did Ghost Again, huh? So Ghost Again, I would say is a contender there in his 9-2 right now. Stepnoski, very strong player here. Stepnoski comes all the way down to $4,000 and gets off the grass and was put away by the ultimate winner there. Hotline Blink, a lot of early speed, came in with fresh legs, so I'm not going to hold that against Stepnoski. Stepnoski converted the 2 loose leads at first call of his career there to the tune of 7 2 lengths. Now, that we're coming at him late on May the 3rd, not always a positive sign when a loose lead winner, a lone F winner, is getting that margin eaten into coming down to the wire, but that was going 6 panels. And Short Time, who was second, is back in here and would come back to win. So if Stepnoski can slip away from Game Maker here, and I think that's the question, then Stepnoski could be long gone. First start this low, first start for $7,500 there, huh? Didn't beat much in that romping win at Mahoning back on April the 7th. And again, was losing his lead by leaps and bounds on May the 3rd. So I think a little early pressure could make him vulnerable here, Stepnoski. But if you see him loose on top, then by all means, proceed to the window. Short Time used a couple of tune-ups to win, but was 4-5 to win last time. And because there was nothing to beat there, the pace was competitive, so they played into his lap there. Short Time with his middle move, his late move. And the 2-3 finishers, and this is important. These are the kind of details you want to make note of and remember. The 2-3 finishers had both been unraced since last season. So the bar was really low for Short Time in victory last start. And then we come to Game Maker on the outside at 4-1. This is a horse I don't like. I hate Game Maker here. And I'll explain why. Game Maker on April the 26th was fairly fit coming in from Mahoning early in the meet there and lost to a bad horse named Kerner who had lousy form. And I think Kerner came back to tank a couple of times in the next higher number 3 condition. And boy, Game Maker did not run like a 30 cents on the dollar favorite. And when Game Maker wins next time, Game Maker stayed left lead and kind of short in stride and was jabbing at the ground in deep stretch and not smooth action. I did not like the looks of it, the way Game Maker was traveling coming down to the wire. And Game Maker needed a 7 and about 3/5 for the last 16th. And I call that stopping at 5.5 furlongs. I make Game Maker up. Maybe a role player here to go out and hurt Stepnoski, but he doesn't scare me a lot in his own right. Famous last words, huh? Because it seems like I'm never correct about Oliveros mounts, and I'm always missing the ball on the Eric Reed entrance, huh? Back in a minute. Don't like the price on Gemstone Warrior with his 2 for 32 record. I would expect more than 3-1 on him to pull the trigger. So we get some parity in the win pool as number 3, Gemstone Warrior. I guess I don't really have secrets about that horse because he's heavily bet there at 3-1 on the cutback. And number 7, Stepnoski, 5-2. And number 9, a short time is as low as 3-1 on short time there, which surprises me just a little bit on short time there. The Vasquez horses get bet though. And I mean, they get bet. This guy's 20% in the claiming races, but you're still losing your ass when you flat bet. I'm only $1.11 back for each $2 you send through the windows. Jock change on Gemstone Warrior. Pagon's done a good job for Randy Bailey. Always been a little bit surprised though that Randy rides Pagon on so many live horses. Arroyo definitely better and takes over the call on Gemstone Warrior here. And there's a look at Gemstone Warrior, who's 3-1. They're going to have to see a little bit better price to actually pull the trigger. And I respect Stepnoski a lot here. And give Ghost again a kind of a look-see as well. So if I can get the right price, I'm going to bet Gemstone Warrior with respect for Stepnoski and some regard for Ghost again as well. I'm not quite as big on short time. And Game Maker is a horse that I don't like here at 4-1. And if you were going to jump into the pick 5, Force of Justice. There's got to be everybody's singles. You're not going to get any equity by singling Force of Justice. But when you take a Magoo, that speedball, who dogged him time before last, and we put away last time out of the equation, and you let Force of Justice, mighty starter allowance, superstar Force of Justice, totally dictate the pace. And how can that race play out any other way when you look at the cast and crew? Then how in the world are you going to beat Force of Justice? And I listed him as one of my morning line price point puzzlers also at 3-1. 3-1? You'd be lucky to get 3-5. I don't think Force of Justice will even be as high as 3-5 in that race. I'm going to sign off until after the race and contemplate my own betting account here, guys. So Stephen Majewski, I want to pronounce this correctly, hit him some Stepnoski. I guess because of the ski, whatever reason, baby, whatever floats your boat, glad that you cashed there on Stepnoski. I will say that Stepnoski was probably the race's likeliest winner and should have been favored. 3-1 on Stepnoski. His Gemstone Warriors price was just ridiculously low. At 2-1, there was Stepnoski, who's now 3 for 3 when able to clear at first call, and that was a distinct possibility there. Should have been a favorite there. Stepnoski, no question about it. Stepnoski was coming back to his field in a big way, though, and almost gets tagged by Shore Time, who really cranked it up in the late stages there with no help at all up top. My man Norman Williams said it almost looked like a workout ride on Gemstone Warrior. This guy's got strange mannerisms on a horse. And I'm not saying he gave up when he got pinched off between horses early on Gemstone Warrior, but it didn't exactly bust his hump either for the rest of the journey on Gemstone Warrior. Whatever the case, need a better price on Gemstone Warrior. 2-1 was just ridiculously low. And again, Stepnoski should have been the favorite on the class drop there, and the buyers, and the not improbable race flow of him opening up to the first call there. So congratulations to Mr. Stephen Majewski for nailing him some Stepnoski. I wish it could always be that simple for you, Marty. I think he was being a little facetious there. I think my man can handicap. So we got 4 races to go in. 3 of those races, you're going to see the favorite give a lone speed appearance on paper. Number 7, Force of Justice. It's going to be crazy low in this race. You can forget that 3-1 stuff. That's insanity. 6th race, not quite that cut and dried. 7th race, Heroes Man. The apparent loose speed on paper is going to be a crazy short price. And in the 8th race, Divine Martha is going to be the favorite. And she looks like the speed of that affair. So it's going to come down to good horses that look to have things their way on paper with their front running styles in 3 of the last 4 races. I'm not saying this is going to create a chalk storm, but that's the way these races are going to shake down in the win pool, I think. And that's the reason for some of the prices you're going to see on some of these probable pace setters, starting with Force of Justice. What is he right now already? Let's check that out. $2-1, that's a tease. That is a grand tease on Force of Justice. Force of Justice was claimed by Virginia Demzik, who usually procures her horses private buys from Team Capuano down Maryland way. Went to the box on this horse, which he rarely does. And what a transformation, as Force of Justice has won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out of 9, out of 8 or 9, I can't count. She's won a lot with Force of Justice, and this horse is the scourge of the starter allowance ranks. Force of Justice. 5 of the last 6 with Force of Justice, who showed 2-turn aptitude, had all the sprint speed, and then stretched out, and didn't just stretch out, but proved rateable on November the 24th. Talk about closing the season with a bang, and then she had her horses ready off the bench early in the meet, and Force of Justice comes back and shows some of that sprint speed that he originated with. Explosive win for a 78 buyer, beat Win Machine, Gates of Heaven. Force of Justice comes back, wins again at 30 cents on the dollar, stretches out, and has to deal with an opposing speed named Magoo, and that didn't work out so well for Force of Justice. Next time, they kind of played friendly, Force of Justice and Magoo up on the lead. And Force of Justice just gradually worked clear of that horse and then broke the race open around the far turn, so he's rateable. Doesn't have to be rateable tonight, though, because you take Magoo out of the equation. And who, I ask, is going to keep Force of Justice honest here? Klimster? High Rolling Dude? Pace? I don't think so. Cozando? No. Big Spin, the deep closer? No. Let me know before you go on the outside who set the pace in a totally paceless 2-turn race at 7/8 on June 21st. Not equipped to deal with Force of Justice through the early stages. So you're talking about a horse that's much the best. It towers in the speed fig column, towers, given his win record, scarfs up these starter allowance races, does Force of Justice. And this is the only condition in which there's a restriction, but a horse is eligible to win and run right back out of the same header and not risk being claimed. So you see these bodacious win records run up in starter allowance races. I can remember over the years, some starter allowance horses, Rapid Redux, whose North American record of, I think, 16 in a row was kind of bogus for some reasons I'll go into maybe a little bit later. I can go back to a horse like Playful Joy, Speedy Crossing, Old Waterford Park / Mountaineer horses that were eligible for starters, and darn near led the nation in wins, if not outright pulling that off. Force of Justice, just a handful for these horses. And that 3-to-1 price point on the morning line is just ridiculous. It's just insanely too high. I would be shocked if you even get 3-to-5 here on Force of Justice. It would surprise me. To me, the question becomes who could be second to Force of Justice. Now, you have got Klimster, who's got no chance in there whatsoever. I don't know what he's doing in there, except to fill a race for somebody else, maybe. And that is maybe possible. Number 3, High Rolling Dude. Long on the tooth. He's 10 years old. But my guy did win a starter allowance race last year, albeit at 6 furlongs, was second in another starter. High Rolling Dude is more tactical, I think, than anybody in here except for Force of Justice. And maybe the horse on the outside, let me know before you go. But at 10 years old, I don't think he can sustain starter allowance finish at 2 turns. High Rolling Dude. Not my favorite option for second place here is what I'm getting at. High Rolling Dude has been second 22 times. And I'm handicapping for second at this point. Pace. Pace wins with a good buyer. First look at Mountaineer on April the 28th. Those 4 life 75s are tough in Austin Town. So we had a license their Pace at 2-to-1. Comes back and is blindsided by Lone Speed winner Magoo, who had snappy figs in form from Phoenix. So that was a good performance. Next time he kind of regressed, I thought. Pace. Well, they didn't fire through the mid stages. They opened up like crazy on him. I don't know what that was about. Number 4, Pace. They got Cozondo. Cozondo, I can break it down for you. He has been a frequent winner at Mountaineer. But when he wins, it seems like he's not in with anybody tough. When he's in with somebody tough, he settles for second. Like the Doorman beat him last time. And a starter optional. The Doorman, I think, had won an allowance fairly recently, and the Doorman went up and kind of strolled out there on a soft pace. Well, it didn't set up for Cozondo. Not really. I don't think this sets up for Cozondo. Cozondo, Force of Justice spanked him last October. Force of Justice, though, just by virtue of his 13 for 15 exacta record at Mountaineer, I think that makes him the likeliest second-place finisher to Force of Justice. Not that Force of Justice is the lock of modern civilization, but not a favorite that I would side against here. Force of Justice. I just wouldn't do that. A big spin, a deep closer who needs some setup. Closer-friendly race beats Cozondo on May the 26th there when Cozondo might not have been quite up to his best speed for the year. That was his second start of the season. A big spin. Comes back at his next one. Does not get big spin-friendly fractions. Try saying that fast. 6 or 7 times in a row. Big spin. And he is 6-to-1. And then on the outside, the most intriguing possibility in here for a piece of it, not for the win, I don't think, but for a piece of it. Let me know before you go who you still like to sit close to the pace and then learn to rally on turf, wins off the claim. And then I don't give a lot of credit for that June 21st one. I thought the horse was a cinch. Is the only speed in there, by the way, and a very sluggish affair. But the next time, a total revelation and a big surprise to me. Gets bounced back at the start, 3-4 lengths worth at least, and then impeded again in the home stretch and still finishes second. That was a superlative effort from Let Me Know Before You Go, and just has me wondering how good this horse is going to get. Start number 20 just seems to be just coming into his own right now. Let Me Know Before You Go. But I don't know if that last race was really for real. Let Me Know Before You Go. And it's Cozondo, who's been almost exacta perfect in Mountaineer and who fits the starter allowance condition for sure. And again, I'm talking in context of who's likeliest to be second to Force of Justice. Boy, I sincerely hope, and I think this is an outside possibility, that Barrios, who sends by trade hard guns and asks questions later, I hope he didn't try to get cute and try to make himself appear to be the reason for Force of Justice to win, because Force of Justice and two of those route wins was rated back at first call to concede the lead. And I hope he has no similar strategy in mind here, because to spot the lead to anybody in Force of Justice who's got 100% of this field's early foot, I think would be sheer folly, just absolute folly, because nobody in here to front Force of Justice like Magoo did with his early foot the last two times Force of Justice went to the post. And 6-5 now on Force of Justice. I guess Cozondo's incredible consistency. I don't know. Can that keep the price at 4-5 on Force of Justice? I don't think so. I really don't need 6-5 last time off a 10-length loss with an apparently fast foe to deal with through the early stages, at least on paper. So what is he going to be here? What kind of price? Now, Cozondo was not in against him last time with Cozondo's remarkably consistent record and near 200,015 wins. But I don't think Cozondo's mere formidable presence is going to keep the price at all afloat on number 7, Force of Justice here. I just don't. I'm going to watch with apt interest, but if I decide to make some kind of a big win bet on Force of Justice, I know what the CAW are going to do at the 11th hour. They're going to come in with the mother of all toad corrections and make this horse like 2-5 or something like that. Although some of their moves do puzzle me over the last couple of weeks. They don't seem quite as infallible as they sometimes have. I got to respond to my man, Russell Brown, Russ, the one horse in the 5th race. Klimster, don't do it, my man. It is an absolute abject waste of money. It is a donation. Don't do that, man. Don't do it. Buy the kids some ice cream or get yourself a beer or something, or just take a match and torch your money, because Klimster has no chance, zero chance, and it was probably entered just to fill the race for somebody else. Just for full disclosure, guys, I punched a 7-6 exacta there because you guys know what I thought was going to happen to the win price there. And did it ever 1-5 on force of justice? That late CAW money was always going to come, and it was always going to obliterate the win price on force of justice. And Cozondo, when Cozondo runs into a tough horse, a monster like force of justice, he never beats that horse. But he almost always runs first or second when he runs at Mountaineer Cozondo. And so I liked him to be second there, Cozondo, and punched a 7-6 exacta there with force of justice on top. So predictable what Barrios is going to do there, because force of justice is the rare horse who possesses all that raw sprint speed, but is so tractable when he goes the distance of ground, rates so kindly. And Barrios, I knew he was going to get cute and reserve force of justice there and entertain some lesser horses through a very pedestrian, in fact, Arabian pace there. And if that's all you can throw at force of justice on the head end, 25 and change, almost 26, and 50 and change, how are you going to beat him? Force of justice. It's not possible. It's just not possible. And if I might toot my own horn a little bit, and this didn't exactly involve any advanced lines making skills. And I did, as the official lines maker, I did the odds of Mountaineer for like 35 years. But I had something to say 3-1 will be higher, and the third something to say paid 19-1. I think I was right about that. And force of justice 3-1 with 3 question marks will be much lower. Yeah, I would call 1-5 lower. So amateurish. And I'm not picking on anybody. I don't even know who does the morning line at the Mountaineer, but it's my job to critique. I'm an analyst. It's what I do, and I'm going to play and do some of my skills as a longtime professional odds maker, and just very bad, very, very, very bad, even amateurish lines making in Mountaineer tonight. I don't mind having turned a force of justice 1-5 into a 3-1 shot with Cozondo second. Although Cozondo was no cinch to be second, because you had to show some respect, I think, for the 9 horses' chances to be second. And Cozondo just barely up for second there. Did my man call the super there? My man Lyrics, Norman Williams? Congrats, man. That's what it looks like to me. And that's one of those short-priced, apparent lone speed favorites. And we've got 2 more of them out of the last 3 races. Our race number 7, Heroes, man, is going to be a low price and figures to open the lead for the early stages. And likewise with Divine Martha in the 8th race, another near certain favorite, probably a short favorite who was likely to set the pace. So I think that's kind of the story as I laid out before that race. 6th race, more competitive on paper. Under starter 8 conditions for these fillies and mares, they can also go for the 12-5 claiming price. We're going a mile here. And one of my old favorites, Red, White, and Tacos, is signed on for this. Red, White, and Tacos, what a private buy on Jaybird's part for my friends, the Tunstals. 12 for 26, so they're making some money. They've raked in the cash with Red, White, and Tacos, but Red, White, and Tacos has been campaigned so long and has been such an earner. I think she's lost a little bit off her fastball. Red, White, and Tacos, and it was almost a walkover on June the 9th there with super soft fractions and the offing out there for Red, White, and Tacos. And I know the race looks key because the 2-3 finishers are both italicized. Don't buy it. That was far lesser competition than she faces in here. And they were playing her song up top. I don't think that she is still really a contender, a prime contender against this kind of a field. Red, White, and Tacos. I always start with her, though, out of respect, and because. So David Pittman says, I am curious as the analysis on this race, as it seems to me to be one of the more difficult to judge. I agree with you, Dave. I agree very much with that commentary. I don't like Red, White, and Tacos here at all. Miss Fussy Pants, you want me to talk Miss Fussy Pants? I will. Miss Fussy Pants, I think Cutter Tees is a 2-turn sprinter, 6.5 and 7 at Charlestown. Miss Fussy Pants, I'm not saying she can't run a route of ground, but it's been a long time since she attempted it. When she won there on May the 18th, under the same kind of a race setter, took the measure of a good horse, Canadian Bear, who's probably better than these horses. But the story of that race, Miss Fussy Pants, who can close, who can stalk the pace, She is so hard-nosed with her 29 times first or second in her career that when you put her out there on the engine on a modest opening quarter of almost 23 and 1, then she's going to finish stoutly. You're not going to beat her when you've got her to catch. So that race kind of went her way up top. Very unusual to see that kind of an opening split and that utter lack of early speed materialize at a 6 furlong distance. Now, she's going a route of ground here. And my big concern with her is always count the starts, Dave. 24 starts over the last couple of years. So if she's not a little bit knocked out at this point, then when is that going to happen? And in fact, she shows some clunkers on her recent form there. I would not rate her most recent race as a clunker, nor the one before, because it's hard to straight up close at 5/8 on the turf. Who knows if she even wants the turf? And then last time, she's not really a 4.5 furlong horse, although she probably should have been gaining more stoutly in the late stages there. She might be the horse that steps out to set the lead here, and far be it for me to discount her chances, but at this stage of her long, hard campaign, doing something different, going a route of ground, she would not be my first option here, Dave. A horse who might be my first option is number 2, Marvelous. Kind of a play on words. The old Billy Crystal routine, marvelous. Yeah, marvelous. Is it how we're supposed to say this? Let's check out the odds here. I hope you guys are digging what I do because I really enjoy being with you guys and hanging out with you guys. I really do. You guys are my friends. We got to get the word out, though, because I am convinced that 90% of the folks used to watch me, and I was really popular when I worked in the industry. And the Mountaineer signal went viral far and wide. I don't think most of them are even aware of what I'm up to here. And I got to get the word out somehow and get up to 500 subscribers if I'm ever going to get paid for doing this. Marvelous was claimed for $16,000 there and halted for $15,000 a couple of times. Last 3 times was second. I'm going to throw out the turf race because Marvelous doesn't like turf at all, which makes that 4th place finish not too bad on June the 1st there for the first look over the mountain main. There were some turf horses in there, by the way, some good turf horses. Finished 1st, 2nd, and even 3rd. So as much as Marvelous hates turf, if you look up her previous tries on grass, that's impressive to me for this 13-time dirt winner, Marvelous, unplaced 4 turf tries. So she's been second. I mean, de facto second her last 3 starts, the last 3 dirt starts. And each time at Parks where they pay you pretty well. And she was in with some tough winners there. Synergism on March the 3rd can be a pretty good closer, and she got away with murder out there. Loose on the lead, Synergism, and was just too tough. And then Concrete Phase, I think looked pretty good too. I think it's come back to run well out of that key race. It was a key race at Parks. Kind of did my homework on some of these running lines where Marvelous was in tough with those winners. I think she's going to be tough here. Marvelous. So she may have been rested from March until June. Jurisdictional jail, which I think is 60 days. Over at Parks, I would say. I don't think it's end of meet. I think it's 60 days or end of meet, whichever comes first. I used to have to keep track of that stuff to check eligibility of Mountaineer. As assistant racing secretary, that was my core responsibility. So anyways, I think she's a big-time player here. Marvelous. She is encircled in the gate here by a couple of current 5-2 chances. Genie in a Bridle. Number 1, Genie in a Bridle was a last out winner with a snappy speed fig. Genie's a 10-time winner, all on dry dirt. But a couple of issues here. Genie in a Bridle has been away since April, almost 3 months on the heels of that hot effort last time. And Genie in a Bridle's been sold privately since that last race. I don't think these folks claim Genie in a Bridle at Laurel. I'd be surprised were that the case. So kind of a question mark. And I would say Genie might have to reestablish herself. This is kind of a sneaky, clever outfit. Don't be completely fooled by their 6% strike rate. But I don't like the psychology of the respite for Genie in a Bridle or the private sale, given this ostentatious record and resounding win last time, huh? I do make a strong contender out of Little Miss Money here. Little Miss Money, I know like synthetics, okay, but is also okay on dirt. Not a frequent winner, that's kind of a knock, but comes out of some kind of a money allowance, and she earned a good speed fig. if you draw synthetic speed figs, despite losing by 6 lengths there, the synthetic races like turf kind of bunch up at the finish. Her Mahoning wears when she wins an A other than and was third the time before in an A other than. Those can kind of vary in quality. Those weren't bad fields, although I'm not sure there was anything in there quite like Marvelous, if Marvelous is halfway on our game here. This is a former Mike Babada horse. I don't know a lot about Sydney Rotuno. I do know that this is a 12% trainer, which isn't bad in the long run. If you look up the long range stats on Formulator there, with a horse like Little Miss Money, who's 5-2 up there, and can position close to the pace if they're going slow, or can sit back and kind of make a move if they are not. Jay Rivers, 6-1, just to kind of cover all the territory here and touch all my bases. And how close are we to the post here? Yeah, we're on the track. Jay Rivers last time dropped down, got eligible for this. I doubt if that was some kind of a master plan to get eligible for starters. That's old school stuff that nobody really does anymore. Jay Rivers did not run the kind of speed fig that's likely to win this and had some real bums behind her to Jay Rivers. So I think she would be at least a mild surprise were she to win this, despite some reasonably classy history there. And I'm looking at the board, and I think we got another tote correction looming here. I don't think the Little Miss Money's going to stay the favorite at 5-2. I think that she's just kind of getting that spot warmed up for the late money. That might be inevitable on Marvelous. And my theory is Marvelous hates turf. And I like the horses that beat her when she was second 3 straight times at Parks. And my theory there is she was only rested in between the last 2 outings because she was caught up in jurisdictional jail, had to run back in Pennsylvania or not run at all. I'm just speculating there, though. I will tell you, with that near 500,000 and 11 dry dirt wins, you ain't getting 7-2 on Marvelous. That's a pipe dream. Not happening, guys. I do make Little Miss Money the second likeliest winner here, for whatever that's worth. So my man bombs away Bob Grant, and there was some useful information. Jeannie has scratched 3 times in June. I don't like that, but actually was claimed by. Now be careful there. You say Scanlon there, the way you type that bombs away. This is Scallon. This is Scallon. So maybe these were the claimants. That could change the landscape here. That could change the landscape a little bit. Still thinking about a bet on Marvelous here. Yeah, so I just checked the chart, guys, and thanks for the heads up. Bombs away, Bob Grant, brimming with useful information. These were the claimants. So they went way out of their neighborhood to claim Jeannie and a bridle, and it already paid off with a resounding win there. So Yeah, I would upgrade her a little bit. First off, welcome into my man Walt from San Francisco, and I will post some of your comments because they will kind of give context to my take on the race. Steve says, did not think the 6 would win, but not a loss anyway. I was a little surprised to lose to that horse, to be honest about it. Not the first horse I was worried about. I was licking my chops at 4-1 on Marvelous, so I still say should have been a favorite there. And out there in that soft lead, just kind of jogging along, I expected a better performance, more fight from Marvelous in the late stages. My man Kenny Neely, who watches the race flow a lot, says, very oddly run race. I think the odd thing about it was Jeannie Nebrada was so sluggish through the early stages. I am not real surprised that Miss Fussy Pants and Red, White, and Tacos were no-shows because I keep pounding and pounding and pounding this theme because I don't think so much in number of starts record on this season necessarily as I do on a 2-year basis because I'm an old school racing official and have checked and written races based on 2-year term eligibility. Do you guys dig what I'm saying? Like in the old days, we would write races, non-winners of 3 in 2010, 2011, and so on and so forth, going back ad infinitum to time immemorial at old Waterford Park. So I look at the long, ceaseless wraparound campaigns on Miss Fussy Pants, who's run 24 times since seeing the sidelines, Red, White, and Tacos 22 times at least since last seeing the sidelines. These horses are knocked out. They're burnt out at this stage of their long, successful campaigns. So I'm not surprised. Those 2 horses were absolute no-shows. I'm a little bit surprised that Jay Rivers takes me down. I like Marvelous a lot there, but such is the game, huh? Jay Rivers dropped in, got eligible, and then boom, baby, I guess the plan came to fruition, as they say. At my expense, 4-1 on Marvelous. Man alive, I still lament that. Seventh race, we're going to see another one in the tradition of Force of Justice, a short-priced, loose leader here, dominant speed on paper, and by far the best horse on paper. Hero's Man might be Force of Justice revisited. In a sense, Hero's Man I listed as one of the ill-conceived price points on the Mountaineer Morning Line tonight, which is not good. And I don't know what the price is right now, but you ain't getting 2-1 on Hero's Man. I can tell you that right now. I'm more likely going to get about 1-5 here when the smoke clears. Again, Force of Justice revisited because this horse's attributes are just too painfully obvious. Hero's Man is a 15-time winner. I know he's 10, but he's in a great barn with Dave Treehorn, who has resurrected this guy to win 3 of his last 5 with Hero's Man. Yeah, 3 of his last 5 when he loses there on June the 23rd. I know he gets caught at 5H, but he runs a buyer that these horses can't even see. They can't even begin to touch a 66. And Hero's Man lost to Dropkick Murphy, who was a solid like $25,000 claimer last year, and who came back right to win that allowance on grass. And then had his number come down. Correct, Dropkick Murphy? Yeah, he beat that 3-5 shot. A big heavy boys that was up from Charlestown with all that stake speed on turf. I did Dropkick Murphy, so that certainly enhances Hero's Man in here. Hero's Man is going to be an incredibly short price. And again, I think the question is to figure it out who can be second to Hero's Man. And we can immediately dispense with Remy's Gunsmoke because Remy's Gunsmoke has front-running style, and it's not going to work. It's not going to mesh with Hero's Man. It's not going to lay a glove on Hero's Man, but it's not going to work because Remy's Gunsmoke wants to lead in his own right. So forget him as a second-place finisher here. And I would also toss Baby Dog. And this is another morning line price that I knocked in my scroll across the bottom of the screen, which somebody last night referred to as CNN-like. And Baby Dog is an ever 2, up from 75. 3-1 on the morning line against Hero's Man. Are you kidding me? Are you joking me? No way. No how. I don't like him at all to be second here. I think the possible second finishers are Rescue 5, Timberry Titler, and Reverend Jack. If we got to think exacta here, our Rescue 5 was in with a much better field last time, Abundant Energy and Zealous Storm. I respect that. And he was 4th. The buyer did show some advancement there on Rescue 5. And he's had a good career, but he's 11 years old and he hasn't won in years. And I haven't seen this trainer partake in an exact in years either. So I don't know about that. Rescue 5's got a little speed, might be prone to chase a little bit from the inside here. Timbury Tiddler, 10 for 36. A well-managed horse on Mike Baird's, one of his Mockins, one of the last of the Mohican Mockins here is Timbury Tiddler. Chestnut, like a lot of the Mockins are. Mockin, by the way, I think won the Derby trial and then had a shortened career. Mike Baird's dominant Northern West Virginia sire of state-bred winners. Timbury Tiddler's always liked 5.5. But what do we do with his return race there? I just went around there in a gallop, Timbury Tiddler, huh? So he's kind of puzzling to me. Just did not fire at all there, Timbury Tiddler. So what do we do with him? No signs that he was finished as a racehorse last year for sure, as he finished up pretty well with a win, a second, a good fourth there. To a good horse named Connected Dots. That was a good field on November the 25th. I gave him a better chance than I do Rescue 5 to be second here. I will tell you that. And Reverend Jack, I think, has a chance to be second also. Reverend Jack is not what he was at all. In fact, he runs straight up never tour now winners in 12 months when he runs open competition for $4,000 outside the program. But Reverend Jack perked up a little bit last time and used to have a kick in these short sprints. And unlike Remy's Gunsmoke, who's going to try and show speed, a Baby Dog who tends to chase a little bit too, and a Rescue 5 who could be a little bit aggressive from the inside. They're all going to get outfooted a Heroes Man, but doesn't it just sound logical that somebody is going to stay back way out of the fray, let Heroes Man lead them all on a merry chase, race them off their collective feet, and then maybe kick it in for a cheap second, clunk up for a cheap, well-beaten second, Reverend Jack. So my two prospective second-place finishers here are Timbury Tiddler and Reverend Jack. Because I do think the two horses are a really likely winner here, not a horse that I would try and beat. Heroes Man's only run for $4,000 one time, and it was a resounding win, and they're going to try and capitalize on that eligibility. First time tonight that they're going to play that starter allowance card, whereas Rescue 5 and Timbury Tiddler and Reverend Jack and Remy's Gunsmoke are regular participants at the $4,000 level that were just in once for that tag and stole a purse and got him eligible, it looks like, when we're talking about number 2, Baby Dog. Just got a text from my man Hubert Gaffney. I got to check it out because I don't really have time to check it out, Hugh. I will, I promise, soon. So 1 to 2, and maybe even going south at price. Again, my perspective, second place finishers. Wouldn't be shocked if Rescue 5 ran second. But I think it's more likely that Timbury Tiddler rights the ship a little bit to be second, or Reverend Jack comes from way back to be second. I'm going to check those exact payoffs out and maybe punch both combinations here. Maybe punch myself a 2-4 and certainly a 2-5. So good luck to you guys in this one. F-bomb alert, guys. If a profanity offends you, then please cover your ears right now. I pounded both those exactas because there's no way that race can run anything besides 2.4 or 2.5. And I made a little bit on the short of those two exactas, but if it runs 2.4, they have to write me a fucking check. So I wanted 2.4 in the worst way. I'll settle for the 2. I'll settle for the 2.5, but what a bummer. If I could have gotten Timberry Tiller home, $17 that freaking thing was going to pay. $17. Remy's Gunsmoke with the front running style had no chance to be second against the superior early firepower of Heroes Man. Baby Dog off the mid-30s Buyers, a career never 2. Get out of here. Rescue 5 hasn't won a race in fucking 9 years. This barn that had Rescue 5 hasn't been part of an exacta in 20 fucking years. This has to be 2.4 or 2.5. If it runs 2.4, they're going to write me a check. They can't pay me cash. So I'll take the 2.5, but drats foiled again, guys. And please, apologies if the F-bomb offends you. I've said before, the over-under in my real life usage on F-bombs, if you were to hang out with me for a day on the golf course, maybe 400 times, something like that. But you guys had to know that, right? From watching me on the Mountaineer feed, you had a sense that, correct? Yeah, I'm sure. 8th race, no winners twice in 12 months. Fillies and Mirrors to go 6 furlongs. I'm not real big on this race, guys. I'm not real big on it at all. I can only tell you Divine Martha is going to be the favorite. Divine Martha likes to win. I don't know if 6 furlongs is going to be a reach here or not for Divine Martha. She's won 6 times at 6 panels. I can start going through these horses and hating on them, believe me. But you're supposed to hate on 2 and 12 month fillies and mares that run dirt cheap, right? Captain Ann, I don't think they could tow her 6 furlongs at this stage of her career. I'm still aghast that she ever won a race. And the bar was a modest 31. Somebody's texting me here. Congrats to my man, Hubert Gaffney, by the way, for winning some kind of a horse tournament, horse betting tournament. We're going to have a tournament in here one of these nights once they get all organized and set up and stuff. We're also going to have some giveaways, guys. I'm going to have some dungeon stuff printed up. I already talked to the guy that screens and used to do the Mountaineer Nation hoodies for me. And the dungeon's going to be the new logo. And I'm going to have a hoodie giveaway from time to time in here too. Once I get organized and get my feet under me and figure out what I'm doing here, guys. So I'm enjoying this a lot, a ton. I really don't want to. I'm hungry. Haven't had dinner yet. My wife is off. And she made some goulash, real Hungarian goulash at my son's behest. And my beloved son, Shane, finally shaved the Grizzly Adams beard off, the ZZ Top beard off. But it's showing that sweet baby face again. He looked like the freaking Unabomber walking around. So I want to get a load of my man's mug. It'll be the first time I've seen it in weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And I'm hungry. I haven't eaten. So would you guys care too very much if I just bid you guys fond adieu for the night and told you I will catch you tomorrow? 15 minutes to post. Thanks very much for showing up. You guys are good friends of mine. Much appreciated. And I guess that is it for tonight. I enjoyed it a whole lot. Mark Patterson out.